In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at an example of converting areas between units, and then also for volume, one example for volume as well. In the first one, we're going to be going from imperial to metric, and then the second one is volume conversions just within metric, different units in metric. So first of all, the area one here. So I have this square, and one of the conversion factors that you might know if you're converting metric to imperial or vice versa is that 1 meter is the same as 3.28 feet. So this is my square that's 1 meter by 1 meter. So we want to get a conversion factor for area. We know the linear 1 meter is 3.28 feet, but what is it for area? So if we calculate the area of this square in square meters, it's 1 meter times 1 meter, which would be 1. Now we're multiplying, so 1 times 1 is 1 squared. M times M is M squared. That's why it's squared for area. And of course, 1 squared is 1, so that has an area of 1 meter squared. Now let's do the calculation in feet. So it's 3.28 feet by another 3.28 feet. Remember, just length times width. So if we're multiplying those, there's two different 3.28s multiplied, so we could write that as 3.28 squared, and F times FT is FT squared, or feet times feet is feet squared. And if you want to square that, and I'm going to bring my calculator over here, 3.28 squared is, it rounds to about 10.8. 10.7584 is the exact value there, but it's about 10.8. So the area is 10.8 feet squared, okay, square feet. Now, so that means that 1 square meter is the same as 10.8 square feet. Now, just so you don't have to remember another conversion factor, because if you know much about imperial metric, there's a lot of different conversions. Don't think of it this way. Okay, the 10.8 came from squaring 3.28. And so use a known conversion factor. Okay, 1 meter is the same as 3.28 feet. So since it's area, the 3.28 is squared. Okay, so we could use this one here, but it's just another factor to remember. Okay, so go to the linear conversion factor. 1 meter is 3.28 feet. So 1 square meter would be 3.28 squared square feet. Okay, so use that fact, and I'll use that in the second example when we're doing volume 2. That same concept, but it's volume, so it's a little bit different. So in this example, we're asked to convert 500 square feet into square meters. So two ways we could do this. Okay, we could use this conversion factor here. Okay, 1 square meter is 3.28 squared feet squared. So if we're going from meters squared to feet squared, we're multiplying by 3.28 squared. If we're going from feet squared, as this one is, to meters squared, we're dividing by that 3.28 squared. So, and that's what we're doing. We're going from feet squared to meters squared, so we're going to divide by 3.28. So here's our 500 square feet. We're going to divide that by 3.28 squared. So this is what the calculation would look like. I would go 500. Now remember order of operations. Remember, you do exponents before you divide. Okay, so we're going to divide by 3.28 squared. Actually, I can type that in exactly as it is in the calculator. So it's about 46.5. Now, the squared has to be evaluated first. My calculator knows to square this 3.28 before it divides by it. So it knows bed mass. You cannot do this. You cannot go 500 divide 3.28 and then square the answer. 152.4 squared is vastly different than 46.5. Okay? See, here we're actually doing the division first and then squaring the answer. That 500 isn't squared. That square is only on the 3.28, so it has to be done this way. That is 46.5, not 23,000 and some. So make sure you follow order of operations. So 500 square feet is 46.5 meters squared. And also, see, this 23,000 number really shouldn't make any sense here. You see, there's 1 square meter is a little over 3 square feet. Okay, so if you have a feet squared answer or a number and you're converting into meters squared, the meter squared number should be smaller. So it shouldn't make any sense that I'm taking 500 square feet and I'm going to get 23,000 square meters, because the square meters should be smaller. Square meters are a larger unit than a square foot. Now, another way we could do this is we could set up a proportion. Okay, so another way to do it, if you forget you're dividing by 3.28. So this is how the proportion will work. 3.28 feet is the same as 1 meter. We're squaring these because it's area. Okay, that's why the powers of 2 are there. So my feet squared is going to be on top here, so my 500 feet squared will go on top over here, and this is my square meter area I'm looking for, I'm trying to solve for. So if we cross multiply, and I'm going to drop the units here. So this x is going to be multiplied by 3.28 squared. That would equal the product of 1. Well, 1 squared is 1, so I didn't bother to put the square here. Okay, times 500. Okay, that feet squared is just units, so the 500 isn't squared. Now I want to solve for x here, so what I would do is divide out the 3.28 squared. So those divide out. So here's my calculation. 1 times 500 is just 500, and we're dividing it by 3.28 squared. Well, that's the same thing I did up here. It's going to give us the same answer, 46.5 meters squared. So 500 square feet is about 46.5 square meters. So here's a volume calculation. So I just did an area one. This is a volume one. So volume is a three-dimensional object. Remember back here, see this is just two-dimensional length and width only, area. Okay. Volume is a three-dimensional object. So we have this cube that's 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter. Or now, see I'm going cubic meters to cubic centimeters. That's why I have the size labeled as in terms of centimeters as well. So it's 100 centimeters by 100 centimeters by 100 centimeters. So we're going to calculate the volume of this in both cubic meters and cubic centimeters. So first of all, the cubic meters, it's 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter. And so if you multiply this together, 1 times 1 times 1, well, that's 1 cubed. I'm only putting the cubed here just to show some consistency between this calculation and the next one. M times M times M, that's 3 m's multiplied. That's why it's m to the power 3 for volume. And of course, 1 cubed is just 1. So the volume is 1 cubic meter. That's a 1 cubic meter box. So let's do the volume calculation with the centimeters now. So in cubic centimeters, it's 100 centimeters times 100 centimeters times 100 centimeters. Those are the 3 dimensions. And of course, there's 3 hundredths multiplied here. So we could write that 100 times 100 times 100 as 100 cubed. And cm times cm times cm, there's 3 of them. So that's why it's centimeters cubed. And now 100 cubed, 100 raised to the power of 3 is 1,000,000. There's 6 zeros there. So this would be the same as 1,000,000 cubic centimeters. So 1 cubic meter is the same as 1,000,000 cubic centimeters. Now, just like the last example, I don't want you to have to remember another conversion factor. Okay, this is volume, so it's cubic meter is 1,000,000 cubic centimeters. Go back to this relationship here. 1 meter is 100 centimeters in distance. Okay, so because it is volume, the measurements are cubed, then a cubic meter is 100 cubed cubic centimeters. Okay, so again, all you have to remember is 1 meter is 100 centimeters, so 1 cubic meter would be 100 cubed cubic centimeters. Okay, so we're multiplying or dividing by 100 cubed. So we're converting this 5 cubic meters to cubic centimeters. So go back to your conversion, this one up here. A cubic meter would be 100 cubed cubic centimeters. So if I'm going from cubic meters to cubic centimeters, I would multiply by 100 cubed. If I was going from cubic centimeters to cubic meters, okay, so this is a much bigger thing. Okay, so it would be a much smaller number if I'm going from here to here. Then we would divide by 100 cubed. Now in the question here, we're going from cubic meters to cubic centimeters, from going from here to here. Okay, so we're going to multiply by 100 cubes, so the answer is going to get bigger. There's a lot more cubic centimeters in anything than there are cubic meters. So let's start with this 5 cubic meters and multiply it by 100 cubed. 100 cubed. So we go 5 times 100 to the power of 3. And again, order of operations. My calculator knows to cube the 3 and then multiply it by 5. The 5 is not cubed. So that's 5 million. So 5 times 1,000,000 is 5 million cubic centimeters. So 5 cubic meters is 5 million cubic centimeters. I guess that should say is there. Now, again, we can instead use a proportion like we did in the last one. So, and 100 centimeters and 1 meter are the same thing. So I put my 1 meter on top and 100 centimeters on the bottom. It's cubed because I'm doing volume. Okay, so I'm converting 5 cubic meters. So the meters cubed is in the numerator here on top. So I'll put my 5 cubic meters on top over here, and this is my unknown. So I'm going to leave the units in this time. I'm going to do a unit analysis along with showing why it's going to end up being 5 times 100 cubed or a million. So x gets multiplied by the 1 meter cubed, and that would equal the product of the 5 meter cubed and the 100 centimeters cubed here. So let's first of all bring all these exponents in and evaluate. 1 cubed is 1. I didn't bother to write the 3 here. 1 to the power 3 is still 1. Meters cubed. This one, there's no evaluating needed. 100 cubes, the cube comes in, and the same with the centimeters. Centimeters is cubed, so that's why it's centimeters cubed here. Now I want to solve for x, so I'm going to divide out the 1 meter cubed, so I get x isolated alone here. And of course this will divide out here, and over here this 1 meter cubed will divide out with the meter cubed here. So basically what I'm left with is x would equal 5 times 100 cubed, cubic centimeters, and so that's really the same calculation I did here. I'm multiplying by 100 cubed, and so 100 cubed is a million times 5 is 5 million. And the reason, again, the answer is in cubic centimeters is because after the units divide out, cm cubed is what I'm left with. So that's another way to accomplish the same thing. And that's the end of the tutorial.